Good day, viewers. In this video, we are going to measure the last um, item of work in beam, which is reinforcement in beam. In the previous video, we measured the concrete in beam. We also measured formwork to beam. So what we have left is reinforcement in beam. We're going to measure that in this video. Like I told you guys in the last video, we're going to measure our reinforcement in beam using this reinforcement plugin, reinforcement to column slab. Referring to concrete slab. This is what we are going to use to measure our reinforcement on the beam. So in doing that, we are going to measure that from our beam section. We're going to measure the reinforcement from our beam section to have different sections of beam here. Different section. These are our beam 1 with the reinforcement inside it. That way. So we have our reinforcement in our beam. I want to show you guys the section. So from the section from the section, we're going to determine the number of reinforcement we have in our beam. Well, so we're going to check the transverse section. From the transverse section now, this is transverse section. This is section on beam 1. This is section 5. Section 5, and this is that section. So from this section, we have how many reinforcement? We have 5 main bars. We have 3 bottom bars and 2 top bars, making 5 in total. Let's go back to our beam 1. Okay. So in this beam, which is beam 1, this reinforcement that goes this way, down to this point, we have 3 of that reinforcement in this beam. While the other one at the top here, we have 2 numbers of that reinforcement. The size of this reinforcement here is what? Is 16. Even from this description, it shows that we have 3 of that, because what we have here is 3y16. The 3 here stands for the numbers of reinforcement, while the y here is the type of reinforcement, and the 16 here is the numbers of reinforcement. While for the top bar, what we have here is 2y16. So that means we have 2 top bars, and the type of reinforcement is y, while the size is 16 mm. So now let's quickly measure this. Like I told you guys, before you commence measurement on a fresh page, what you're going to do is to first of all scale. You scale the longest dimension. So I want to scale this dimension. Since this is the longest dimension, let's check if I have another dimension that's longer than this. Okay, I think that's the longest dimension, 4.425. Let's scale that. 4.425. Okay, let's scale one other dimension. Let's scale this. This is also, let's scale that. That's 3.6. 3.6. 3.6. Now let's confirm what we just scaled. So I'm going to do that using our dimension 2 to confirm if the scaling is right. Yes, I think we are good to go. Now let's measure. I want us to do one more thing. before commencement of measurement, I want us to create a folder because we're going to measure different we're going to have different measurements for reinforcement in beam here. So but I want those measurements to be in a single folder. In doing that now, I'll have to go back to take off summary. Since this is our beam, what we have here is concrete in beam, formwork in beam, and steel up. And now I want to measure the member. I want that folder to be under this this beam plugin. What I'm going to do here is just click on superstructure. Then after that, I'll now click on this folder icon here to create a folder. So name this folder reinforcement in beam. Reinforcement in beam. Okay, we have our folder there. Then let's measure our reinforcement one after the other. So we'll start with beam one. With beam one, I want us to measure the top bar first before the bottom bar. We have 2 bars as the top bar. Please take note. You click on the green button in front of reinforcement here to activate that plugin. Numbers of reinforcement. How many we have? We have 2. Okay, so I'm going to input 2 here. 2. This top bar, I'll leave it as 1. You can do it this way. If you input what is it called here? Yes, since the top bar, the numbers of top bar we have is different from the numbers of bottom bar we have to measure them separately. So what I want to click on here is what is 1. If you should look at the description here is what top bottom. Admin will have 2 reinforcement at the top and 2 reinforcement at the bottom. I'm going to click on 2. So with that, we'll have how many reinforcement in total? 2 times 2, which will give us 4 reinforcement in total. But what I want to measure here is just the top bar, which is 2. So I'll click on 1, top bar alone. I hope that's clear. So the next field here is the weight, the field for the weight of reinforcement, and the weight of 16 bar is 1.577, 1.577. That's it, 1.577. So after that, this let's choose the location. This measurement, we want it to be inside our reinforcement in beam under superstructure, and let's rename this as reinforcement to beam 1, B1, reinforcement in beam 1, reinforcement in beam 1. Then you click on OK. What I'm going to do next is just trace this. We're going to trace that reinforcement line from this point. Click on this, drag this way. Okay, I think we have a break here. So click on this, and we click on you press the N button on your keyboard, N for next, and you click on this. You can see that this thing is predicting this point automatically. You can stop this prediction by turning off this snap tool. Once you turn off this snap tool, it won't predict any point for you again. So with that, you'll be able to click on the desired point. So that's how we measure our reinforcement in beam. You have to trace them one after the other because of the break in the reinforcement. So we are done with the top bar in our beam 1. So I'll click on escape to end that measurement. We're done with that. What we're left with here in beam 1 is the bottom bar, and we have 3 numbers. So go back to that plugin, click on it to reactivate, click on the green button to reactivate. This will be reinforcement in beam 1, 2. reinforcements in B1. Numbers of reinforcements here is what? 3, because we have 3 bottom bar. And I'll click on 1 because what I want to measure here is just the bottom bar. I'm not measuring both top and bottom bar. Then the bar width is 1.577. Then click on OK. And we'll trace the reinforcement the same way we trace that of the top bar from this point down to this point, down that way. Let's zoom in to have a clear view. Okay. Then I think it ends here. We click on N, then measure from this point again down that way to the end, and that's all. Click on Escape to end the measurement. So with this, we are done with measurement of reinforcement in our beam 1. So let's measure the reinforcement in beam 2. Where's beam 2? Okay, this is beam 2. As you can see, we have only one beam 1. We have one beam 2, one beam 3, but we have 2 beam 4. That's why in the description we have 2 number toss, because we have 2 beam 4. But for beam 2 and beam 3 we have one number. Beam 2 and beam 3 we have one number. Let's reactivate that plugin again. Click on this to reactivate it. And drag this down. Okay, before then, let's check the number of reinforcement we have in our beam 2. So check that from the transverse section. No, this is the longitudinal section. Check that from the transverse section. Beam 2. The section through beam 2 is 4,4. So let's check section 4,4. Okay, this is section 4,4. So in section 4,4 now, section 4 here, with what we have in section 4,4, the reinforcement in beam 2 is what? 4. That means we have 4 bars in beam 2. We have 2 top bar and 2 bottom bar. That's why it's important that you check your sections properly before measurement, so that you will not over measure or under measure. In our beam 1, we have 5 reinforcements, 3 bottom bars, 2 top bars. But in beam 2, we have 2 bottom bars and 2 top bar, making 4. So the number of reinforcements we have here is 4 this time around, not 5, according to what we have in this section. So we have 4 reinforcements in beam 2. Let's go back to beam 2. We have 4 reinforcements here. And one other thing I want us to take note of here is that in beam 2 there's no break in reinforcement. You can see the reinforcement is continuous. Like the whole thing is, it's the whole reinforcement here. It's just a single reinforcement. What we have here is single reinforcement. There's no breakage anyway, both along the top bar and the bottom bar. There's no breakage on the top bar and there's no breakage on the bottom bar. What this means is that we can actually measure the whole reinforcement once instead of measuring twice the way we did here, since there is no breakage and the length of our reinforcement here is the same. So let me show you how we're going to do that. We'll click on that green button to reactivate our plugin. What we have here now is reinforcement in B2. Reinforcement in B2. In beam 2. Number of reinforcements here is what? We have 2 top bar, 2 bottom bar. Number of reinforcements here is what? 2. We have 2 reinforcements here. What wrong? We have 2 reinforcements here. 2 reinforcements. And here I'm going to click on 2 because I want to measure my top and bottom bar together. So I'm going to click on 2. Measuring my top and bottom bar together. And the bar width is what? Is 16. You know, we have 2 bottom bars here, right? And we have 2 top bars here. What this means is that at the end of the day, what I will have here is what? 2 times 2, which is 4. And that's the number of reinforcement in beam 2. So I'll click on OK, and we're going to measure only the top bar. Instead, I'll measure the top bar alone or measure the bottom bar alone. You don't have to measure both because we've indicated there that we're measuring both top and bottom bar. So click on this, drag this that way, click on this, and we'll end our measurements here. So since I'm done with my measurements, I'm going to click on escape. So with this, I'm done with my reinforcement in beam 2. Let's measure that of beam 3 and beam 4. So we'll stop at beam 4. I think with that, you guys will be able to measure the remaining reinforcement. Okay, this is our beam 3. And the section through beam 3 is what? Section 3. Let's check the detail in section 3. Where's section 3? Section 3. Okay, this is section 3. Yes. What we have in beam 3 is the same as what we have in beam 2. We have 4 reinforcements here, 2 bottom bars and 2 top bars. So let's go back to this. Even from this place, from this description, you don't have to check the section, but you can also check to confirm. But you don't have to check the section. From this description here, you can see the description here shows that we have 2 top bar and we have 2 bottom bars. But you can also check the section to confirm. You click on this to activate it, and we'll rename this as reinforcement in B3. We have 2 bars here, and what we want to actually measure is both the top and the bottom bar, and the bar width here is this. Okay, then we trace from this point down that way, down to this point, and that way. So with this, I'll click on escape. Let's quickly measure that of beam 4, the reinforcement in beam 4. So in our beam 4, according to the description here, we have 2 bottom bar. Yes, according to this description, we have 2 bottom bars, and we also have 2 top bar. Let's confirm that from our section. The section through this is 8. Section 8. This section, we have 2 bottom bar, 2 top bars. Let's go back to our beam 4 and measure. I want us to measure our top and bottom bar separately, because if you let me zoom in so you see something. Let me zoom in. Okay, so if you take close look at what we have here, you see that the overlap here of the top bar is shorter than that of the bottom bar. That the lap we'll have here, this lap here, is longer than that of the top bar. So if we should just measure the reinforcement here using the top bar, that means we're going to under measure. And if we should measure using the bottom bar, we're going to over measure. So I'm going to measure this separately. I'm going to measure the top bar separately, and I'll measure the bottom bar separately. So let's activate our plugin. And I can also measure them together. Yes, I can measure them together. If I'm going to measure them, okay, let's measure them separately. That's the best way to go about it, since their lengths are not the same. So let's measure our top bar first. We have 2 top bar. What I want to measure here is top bar alone. So I click on one, and the bar width here is 1.577. So I'm going to trace the top bar from this point. So I'm going to trace this top bar from this point down that way. So I have a break here. Click on N, and I'll start the new measurement from this point. Let's zoom in. Okay, let me zoom in very well so I'll be able to measure this properly. Okay, down that way to the end of our top bar. Then I'll click on escape. Then let's quickly measure our bottom bar. Reinforcement in B4. In B4, number of reinforcement here is 2. Then I'll click on 1, top and bottom bar. Then we change this to, we'll click on 1.577 and we'll trace this from this point down that way, down to this point. Click on N to this point, down that way, then to the end of our reinforcement, and I'll click on escape. So with this, we're done with measurement of reinforcement in B1, B2, B3, and B4. So with this, I believe we should be able to measure the remaining reinforcement in beam. And these are our reinforcement we've measured so far. Let me change this to B4. Reinforcement in B4. In B4. So with this, we are done with measurement of reinforcement. We are done with measurement of beam. We've measured the formwork, the concrete, and what we just did here is the reinforcement, the main bars, and these are the values of our reinforcement in beam. In our next video, we'll move on to the next element, which is the slab. In our next video, we're going to measure reinforcement, concrete, and formwork to slab. Or probably you might measure that of lintel instead. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.